Are you looking for something affordable, unique, and fun to give away in your merch orders or at your shows? Look no further. Hit me up today to order 1-inch buttons for your band, label, or other project. High quality metal pinback buttons for your friends and fans' battle jackets, messenger bags, and guitar straps. $33 for 100 buttons shipped in the US. Message me on IG at Everything Remade to get started. Hello, and welcome to Everything Remade, a podcast that I hope is about growth as much as it is about music. I'm Edie Quinn, and we have a great show lined up for you today. Before we get started, though, I'd like to remind you about our Patreon page at patreon.com/humanmachine, where you can go to help support the show and get all kinds of sneak peeks in the music that we've been working on, as well as read all our zines and everything like that. That's patreon.com/humanmachine. And now, I'd like to play something for you.
I want to be planted in the soil.
You're hearing Soil by Dim, featuring my pal Brian Perez-Canto on guitar and vocals. The song comes from their album, Planted in the Soil, which releases on July 19th.
The first concert I ever went to was with my family. We went to go see U2, and I was like, I guess I was probably in middle school or something. And it was that tour, the 360 tour, with the whole big. I don't know if you remember that, but
It
had this,
sounds familiar. The one that really sticks
Yeah.
out, obviously, is the Zoo whatever tour. I keep wanting to say
Okay.
Zootopia, but that's obviously not it. But it was like something about a zoo. But yeah.
Yeah. No, they had this big contraption that they were taking with them, dismantling and building it back, and had this whole 360 thing. So that was the first concert I went to. Um the first show that I went to that was of my own choosing was Warped Tour 2005. Um I think I was 12 and my brother was 10, so my parents brought us out there, and we went to go see Hawthorne Heights and probably From First to Last, My Chemical Romance, bands like that. Um, but the first local show was probably one of my friends. I had a friend that was in a band in middle school, and I was like, oh, you can do that when you're in middle school, just play a show. And it was just a shitty we had a shitty suburban venue near us called Swayze's that would literally book anyone that wanted to play there.
Yeah,
And
I've
the
heard of that place.
yeah, the owner is a terrible person and it ended up shutting down, but it was very important for starting off playing music when you're young, because they would literally book you all the time. So that's when I started playing music, that was the venue that we would play all the time. We probably played there 50 times, um, during high school, um, until once I got into college, the scenes kind of shifted and we started playing more in Atlanta. Um, at a DIY spot called Wonder Root. Um, but yeah, I mean, the first kind of local DIY show would have been at that shitty venue called Swayze's, just watching my friend's shitty pop punk band.
And that was um a big deal though, because like you said, it was wait, our bands, who, I mean, at that age you think that access has to be given to you because of like some measure of success or something, but then
Right.
being like, wait, we can just like talk to these people and play here. That
Is
definitely
that
is like,
easy?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And unfortunately, most of those places that like it does end up being that like somebody shitty runs them or something, but it doesn't like take away from what it like meant to us at that time. It's just like
for
unfortunately
sure.
later we're like, oh, some of that wasn't cool.
Yeah,
um
yeah.
but yeah, it's like I don't know, like I don't know like what like some of the people that but like we started out doing like our own warehouse shows and stuff, so it wasn't until later that I ever tried to book at a bar or anything like that. But it was like definitely important to us at that time. Like it was some of the first instances where like our parents could go and check us out or whatever. And I don't know, I guess that felt kind of important at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, that was definitely the time when my parents would go to our shows the most. I mean, when we played our first show, I was 15 and my brother was 12, so we literally couldn't even drive. So we had to have my parents drive us. And like, yeah, I mean, even like some of the early recordings, like when we started, we weren't even old enough to drive. Um, so they were like always super supportive of what we were doing, which was cool. And we were obviously really bad at that age. We basically started the band as we were learning how to play our instruments. So
We're not talking about Dim, are we?
no, no, no. This is like my first band. Um,
Oh, okay, I was gonna say that'd be wild.
no, 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 no. This was my first band. It was like we kind of started off like kind of the shitty metalcore stuff that was like really popular during the mid 2000s. Um, and then like partway through was kind of when um we found out about like Sunny Day Real Estate. Um, I saw a music video for Seven, and I was just like blown away. And I was like, "This is what I want to do." So like, got into them and like Hum, and then through that found like some more like screamo stuff, like I Hate Myself, and On the Mighty Princes was huge for us. But we still had like some of like the earlier influences. So like we kind of went into like maybe a little bit more like Alexis on Fire or Under Oath and bands like that, but a little bit more like the emo influence as well. Um, so by the time the band actually ended, we weren't that bad anymore. Um, and people were actually into it by the time that finished up. But we were, I think by the time it really ended, I was like 18 going off to college, and it was just one of those like transitionary periods that we weren't going to keep on going after that.
So we jumped by this a little bit, but what was it that like initially made you realize that this was something that you wanted to do?
So I in middle school I started skateboarding, and through that I kind of found like punk music. Um, I think like Rise Against was one of the first like bands I got super into. And I don't know, I've always been someone that's like I don't really like just do things passively. Like if I like something, like I want to do it myself. So like if I like punk music, like I wanted to play that. Um, my brother like became friends with this kid that his dad had been in a band. So like their house had like a drum set and like guitars and um a whole he had like an Ampeg like 810, and we just thought it was like the coolest thing ever. Um yeah. um and and this kid, he played guitar, but he also played percussion and band, so he was fairly proficient at like drum set and guitar. um and my brother like went over to his house one day and he's like, I want to learn how to play drums. I was like, well, if my brother's going to play drums, I got to learn how to play guitar. um and we basically like started playing music um, to be in a band, and it was us three at first, and then we went through a couple bassists, as you, you know usually does. Um, yeah. So yeah, I mean that was really it. Yeah, just seeing like the bands that we liked, and realizing like, hey, this is something that we want to do.
So when you were playing with your brother in bands all this time, like when you moved away to college and it was time to start playing with other people, did you have a hard time getting used to playing other people that you didn't have that familiar bond with or whatever? Or was this like something else that you needed to learn to do?
Yeah. Actually in college, like the band that I started in college, my brother was still in high school. But he was playing drums in that band too. Um, we kind of went into like the emo kind of somewhat like pop punk thing. Um, so this was like 2012 when we 2011, 2012 when we started that band. Um, so it really wasn't until like much later that I even started playing music without my brother. Like it was um he was in a band called Places to Hide for a little while. And they were like on Tiny Engines. I he Yeah, and he did that band without me, when, kinda during college time, but it wasn't really until like, even after that, like, I played we did a hardcore band called Fishmonger, um, and my brother did vocals in that band. Um, so, yeah, I mean, basically for the first, like, 10 years of playing music, it's it was with my brother. Um, Either him doing vocals or playing drums. So I've worked with different drummers like over the years. Um, so it wasn't necessarily like brand new, but um, thinking about it now, I mean, Dim's probably like the first band that I've done without my brother that's actually like been, consistently kind of playing shows. I've done a lot of like different like side projects throughout the years. Um, but it hasn't really nothing that's really like, lasted more than, a few months.
Yeah. So with them being a two piece and how convenient it's always been to play with your brother, was there ever like a inclination to where you wanted to sort of be like, hey, why don't you come and play bass with us or something like that?
With So with them, I think like when that started, that was kind of a time period when a lot of my friends were moving away from Athens. Athens is a college town, so there's like bands don't usually last more than like 2 years there. People, move a lot. So, within like a span of like a few months, I had like several like close friends that I played music with that ended up moving. Um, there's, I mean, I'm assuming you're familiar with like Under Sky So Blue. Yeah, yeah. So I played music with them for a long time, but Will, from that band, he at one point like moved to like Belize and then Nebraska. He's now in Madison, Wisconsin. Aaron from that band, like he moved to Dahlonega, which is like up in North Georgia for a while. My brother moved to Philly. Um, and then my roommate, who we also had played music with, he moved to Washington State. So there was like a lot of like people really close to me that had moved, and I was like, well, shit, who do I have left to play music with? So Colin was living with me at my house at the time, and I had a baritone guitar, and I'd always I always thought like had the idea in my mind like it would be cool to do a two piece with drums and baritone, and see if I could pull it off. Because hoping that like the baritone would kind of cover a little bit of the both frequencies and see if I could pull that off live. Because the first song that I wrote for Dim was Home, and I actually wrote that on just the regular guitar, and I jammed that with Colin. I was like, then we sat there thinking, and we are like, well, who else are we gonna get in the band? And we're like, well, maybe. I could try to do this, like, I thought about doing a two-piece in the past with a baritone, so grab the baritone, play the song, we're like, "Oh shit, that sounds good." Um, so, that was basically how that started, and it was just kinda just something to see if, we could pull it off, live, and, but, I definitely didn't think that anyone was really gonna listen to it when we recorded and put it out. Um, if I had known that people were gonna be listening to it, like, outside just, like, my friend group, um, I probably wouldn't have done the two-piece thing, um, because it just, like, adds, like, more pressure to, like, when I'm playing guitar and, like, doing vocals and, like, hitting pedals at the same time, it's just like, if I fuck up, it's, like, so much more obvious when, like, that's it, like, there's no one else to hide what I'm doing, so, yeah, and with a two-piece, like, I feel like, if a two-piece is like, that's the thing, like, if you're a three-piece and you add a 4th member, no one's like, "Oh, you ruined the three-piece," but if you're a two-piece and then you add more members, people are like, "Wait, that was, like, the thing of your band." So, at this point, we're gonna keep it as a two-piece. We made it work.
Yeah, for sure. Like we've gone from, like two piece, whether I'm playing drums or guitar or whatever, to now we're usually a three piece. But since, we're talking about that and like, I don't always get into like gear talk or whatever, but it's really awesome, like to hear about, two piece bands that are making it work and like stuff like that. So, if you wouldn't mind like going through what's on your board.
Yeah, I basically go through a tuner, and through the tuner, I have, like, how you have, like, the regular out and then, like, the mute through or whatever, and then that goes into I have, like, a mimic pedal, which, um yeah, and then one kinda goes through just, like, my regular, like, overdrives and delay, and then the other signal goes through like, a bass fat drive, and then through the delay or, yeah, chorus and then into the delay or whatever. Um, so I actually don't use an octave pedal, um, for some reason, like, well, I mean, it's since it's baritone, it's, like, it's not as much of a necessity to have an octave pedal, um, and for some reason, like, in my head, like, that feels a little bit more like cheating to use the octave pedal, but I will run, like, one signal through a guitar amp, then one signal through the bass amp, and then, like, I'll use, like, the tuner pedal and turn it on and off when, like, I want to, you know, almost, like, have the effect. Yeah, exactly. Have the effect of, like, just one guitar, playing at the time. Um, so, yeah, it's a lot of, like, hitting pedals at the same time and things like that, so
Yeah, just like when you want to make it bigger or dial it back a little bit.
yeah.
Do you ever get into micromanaging the pedals, like where you're taking some off and some out, or is it sort of a all or nothing?
Yeah, it's pretty much always the mimic pedals on. If the signal is going through both amps, yeah, it's going through the mimic pedal. Um, I try to keep it, somewhat subtle, so it's not like if a part needs to be like super tight, um, and it would sound weird if there was like too much space between it. Like I kind of tone down the space so that those it's not yeah, just so that it's a little subtle. Just add a little bit of space to it.
Yeah, for sure. So, all of your releases have come out in either May or July. So, is there a reason for that, or is it just like I love the summer and here's some summer releases, or is there more to it?
I think it's really just a coincidence, honestly. But looking back on it, like most of the times that I actually end up releasing something is like around that time. Maybe it's just like I think I definitely get like seasonal affective disorder or whatever. And, like during the winter, like I don't want to do anything. And then maybe it's like when spring comes around, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to record. And like, I mean, there's been times that like I've put out like 3 different releases, like, on the same week of different, like, projects that I'm doing. Like, that first Dim EP, that same, like that same month or so, like, I put out an EP with Will, um, from Under Sky So Blue before he moved, and, Hokyo Kasaiken. Yeah, and that again, that was one of those things, like, we recorded, like, this EP, and Will wrote all those songs, like, this is fucking great," and then, before he could even play a show, he ends up moving. Um, and then, like, I did, like, a studio project kinda thing with my brother, and released that right around the same time, so maybe it's just, like, um, I end up it just ends up being that I kinda record in the spring a lot, and so it ends up coming out during the summer, so but it's definitely nothing, um, intentional, but, yeah, I mean, we definitely Dim definitely slowed down during lockdown. um We put out the EP and played one show, and then Colin actually ended up moving to DC. So, again, it's just like a repeated pattern. Um, and we were probably we probably thought at the time, like, "Yeah, we probably won't, like, keep on doing this," but people were, like, into it, like, people were buying tapes, like, that weren't just, like, my friends, and so I was like, "Oh, this is cool." And we had only played the one show, so in 2019, we're like, "We should," I had never toured, so we're like, "We should maybe try to tour, go up to DC and back, that way we actually get to, play these songs more than just that one show that we did." We went up to Philly and back, and when we're doing that, we're like, "We should maybe keep this going, like, people are into it," like, we played Baltimore, and someone in Baltimore, like, knew the words to our song, and we're like, "That's crazy," like, this stranger, like, likes our band and knows the words to our song, that's cool. Um, and then during COVID, that was, like, kind of, like, the perfect opportunity to try to, like, write songs remotely. Um, so I would, like, record, like, a scratch guitar to a click and send that to Colin, and he has, like, an electric drum set in his apartment in DC, and he would, write something and send it back to me, and then I would take that, and then I'd, like, actually, like, record guitars and bass to that, and then, basically demo out. That's how we did, like, the first EP, or sorry, the second EP that we put out in 2021. Um, and then, like, everything basically since then, we've written remotely, just, like, sending stuff back and forth.
Now, do you feel like that takes away from some of the spontaneity of writing a record with somebody, or do you feel like that makes you more spontaneous? Like, for example, I can be kind of self conscious when it comes to like playing something for the first time in front of people, but if I get like drums to me, I'll try all kinds of shit that I would never try, because I'd just be too self conscious of doing that, like in front of somebody for the first time. Like, have you had anything like that?
Yeah, I don't know if, like, I've had, like, a similar thing. Um, I will say that sometimes, like, I if I were to write something that, like, and I was able to, like, practice with someone, like, in the room with me, I would maybe try something that's a little bit more complicated, or, like, technical, and, like, when we were doing that first EP, I kinda realized, like, I was trying to like, some of the stuff I was, like, trying to be too cute or whatever, and I just kinda needed to just to, like, simplify it, so I've kinda had that approach, like, later on, is, like, our songs are pretty simple songs, uh, partly because we're writing remotely, and then partly because there's just one baritone guitar, um, and just, like, trying to focus on just, like, writing good, simple songs, um, and, like, utilizing dynamics and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, this conversation is surely making me kick myself in the pants for not having like $500 or whatever every time David Gill posts like some awesome baritone guitar that he was selling. um, but you for sure are doing yourself like a service by making stuff, simpler, in as much as like you have to be able to play the song and like still enjoy yourself, and everything like that as well.
Yeah.
I just realized that like this phantom power on this mic, I when I sat this up here, that all my questions disappeared. For So I'm just gonna have to go in and make up questions in these or something. But yeah,
Oh man.
um, yeah, that's a first. Um, the
Okay.
only other time I think that these phantom powers have ever been even turned off was one time when it. Okay, so it was like, it's probably nearly 10 years ago at this point, and I was recording "Ours Is the Cosmos Noble," and
Okay.
that was the first time I ever recorded an album by myself as well, like completely by myself,
Yeah.
and and I came down at some point, and I had like and just like didn't notice, finished recording the drums for the album, and then I go in later and I'm like, this this phantom power on this overhead mic was gone.
Oh
And
man.
so I recorded most of it, and it was not like that, but it was like a couple songs where I had to go into the floor tom mic, and I had to scoop the EQ, and I doubled the floor tom mic, and I did as much as I could to like adjust the phase or whatever so that it would not sound like I just doubled the mic.
Yeah.
And then I like scooped it a certain way and compare it to the, and it's like when all is said and done, like unless I say something, probably no one would have ever noticed that like that's what
Right.
I did, but it was wild. And so
Yeah.
yeah. uh,
That reminds me, there's a Youth of Today record where supposedly the snare drum like didn't get recorded, so he went back and the drummer recorded just the snare drum by itself.
that's that's wild, but also like I've seen all of these things now where people do that on purpose,
That's
like
crazy.
record like drum by drum on purpose. And I've seen like stuff where like there's like how to's and stuff on YouTube and on Instagram, little reels or whatever, of how to record the drums separately from the cymbals and stuff like that. And I'm like first of all, I like could not do that. Like
Yeah.
I am just I I can, and I have played to a click. I have recorded to a click, but I think like even if I did, it would just wouldn't, cuz I just get like too like I don't like sit behind a drum set and just like hit the drums. Like I get too emotionally and physically involved in like
Yeah.
hitting the drums and stuff, that like when I'm done playing the drums, I look at my like left like thigh and it's like bruised, and because I'm just like hitting things, I'm hitting my legs, I'm hitting the rims of the drums, and my fingers are
Right.
busted, and like I just that would not work for me. I don't I like when I if like we've played a show where the bass drum just like snapped or whatever, I gotta pretend I'm still playing it. And I'm sure that's what you do. You just like when you're
Yeah.
recording just the snare, you tap on your leg or something, for the other parts. But I don't know, that's wild. Um,
Yeah.
so I don't
I don't
know.
get that.
That'll be a bit of fun later. But anyway, back to it's funny because we're like, yeah, we're talking about like spontaneity, and then it's like, yeah, okay. So speaking of spontaneity, um, But yeah, so y'all basically got started in 2018, and then you had like a tour where it was like a nah, like we'll keep this going, and you know, you said like that the whole releasing things in the summer was a coincidence. Are you also gonna say that like most of your song titles being one word is also a coincidence, or is there
I don't know.
no? That's like, so is there like a bigger thing to that, or is that kind of do you try to distill a certain part of the song down into one word? Is that the intention there, or is there something else?
I've never really liked picking song titles. Um, Damn's probably like the first band that I've been in that I've actually like um been like the primary like lyricist.
Mm,
Um, so like coming up with song titles and like album names, like never was really a part of doing that. So I think it was just like um partly like an aesthetic choice. Like it's just like, oh yeah, all the song names are just one word. Um, but it was just like, let me pick out the word in the lyrics that is the coolest sounding word,
sure.
basically. That's basically how it works. But like now looking back on it, again, the decisions always in hindsight, you might do things differently. But like if you just search, like especially like on Instagram, like if you just search like dim and like the song name, like it's like impossible to find some of our songs
Yeah.
like like that.
Yeah, even searching for y'all's Bandcamp is hard for some reason, which is like not it's just like there's not even that many bands named Dim. It's just like all these other results come up first, but if you put in Dim
Yeah,
Screamo, then y'all will come right up. And
sure.
like yeah, it's really weird like how I think that's I think that's not necessarily 100% on y'all as much as it is like just the weird way that search engines work,
It's
especially
definitely
like the
yeah,
last couple years, but yeah.
yeah. It's definitely partly on us. I mean, there's that whole like emo screamo aesthetic, like just pick like one word, like simple, like really ordinary word, like mineral
Mhm.
or uh or whatever. And that's kind of what we're trying to do. We just like picked something that we thought sounded good, but
Yeah.
uh yeah, it would have made searching us a lot easier if we picked something a little bit more unique or whatever.
Yeah. I used to have a hard fast rule of like if you could Google the name then forget it, but now I don't care. Like
Yeah.
somebody like when we were naming Bitter Pill, I was like, let's call it Bitter Pill, and people were like, there's two other bands, and I was like, don't care. Does anybody
Yeah,
else
yeah.
care? And everybody else was like, not really. So it became that, but and like
Yeah.
yeah, this newer project, the other person in the band, she googled like she liked a name I threw out there, and she googled it, and she was like, but there's this other thing, but they only have like one song on SoundCloud, and I was like, I don't care either way if you don't care. So we're like
Yeah.
we're like yeah, we're keeping that one too. But yeah, I don't know, I mean, like what's a cease and desist on a screamo band that sells like 30 tapes,
Right.
like
Yeah.
what are you gonna but yeah, it's so like I so yeah, not skipping over like anything, we mentioned It Feels Like Home came out in July of 2018. Then the follow-up, which you called an EP, which To Realize Its Own, The Earth, that was 7 songs released in 2021 of May of 2021. Then y'all had the
Hmm.
split with Catalyst, and the new album Planet in the Soil is coming out July 19th. And the first single, which I mentioned in our texts earlier, Semilla, was like my that one caught me right away, and I did not know it was the single at the time because you had shared with me the whole album, and I was just like I was listening, but I was like also like eating, and when that one came on, I'm like, oh, go check the name, and I checked, and I'm like, yeah, that's the
Yeah.
one. Um, But so I also noticed that so if anyone is unfamiliar, the word means seed, but also it means there's a slang word for it. Are you aware of that?
Uh, no.
So apparently in Dominican, it's a slang word for clitoris. They
Okay.
use it, and I was like, you know, plant it in the soil, and so we have seed, and so that part checks out. But also I was like, I just thought that was interesting, and I thought I would throw that out there. But so we're clearing the air that is not why that's named that. But like, why was that the single for you? Like, why was that the one that you wanted to lead with?
Actually, we sent the record to No Funeral that's putting it out,
Okay.
and that was the song that they picked.
Okay.
So I guess it's cool that like I mean I guess it shows that like people like that song since that's the one that kind of stands out.
Yeah,
Um,
that you're two for two on it.
so I guess we made the right decision choosing that one as the single. I mean I really like that song. So when he suggested that one, we're like, yeah, we're down with that. So
Mm.
um, yeah.
When you were this album definitely feels I haven't taken the time and spent the time with some of the other releases. Like I've listened to them. I actually listened to them today. So they're fresh for me and everything. But
Mhm.
so I can't say that you didn't do this with these, but specifically Planted in the Soil feels really deliberately paced, like you have a strong beginning to end like flow to it. Is that something that you're self-conscious of when you're putting the album together, or is that a flow of the way you write, or do things get do you move things around to create that flow later?
Yeah, I definitely didn't write the songs in the order that they're on the
Okay.
record. Um I wanted this was the first like full length that I've ever like purposely like recorded.
Mm,
Like you know proper full length like 10 songs
sure.
or whatever. So I was like very intentional um about like creating like a whole piece, not just like individual songs. Um and you know I thought it would be a good opportunity to like kind of do things that you might not normally be able to get away with in like a shorter release, like have um a couple songs that just like kind of start out slower and like give like a break in the album, you know, to a certain degree. um so like that's why like I kind of stuck Memoria like in the middle, because that song starts off, you know, fairly like quiet. So it kind of gives the album a break, and then you know finishes up with like a slower song as well. Um, and then I think when we had like 9 songs written as a demo, I showed it to my wife and then to my brother, and they're like, "You need another fast song on here. There's too many slow songs." So uh, wrote another song that was a little bit faster. So that was the second song on there. Um, so, but like definitely like try to like um, place the songs in a way that like it flows well and it feels, you know, very cohesive.
Yeah. Yeah. And you recorded this with Jay Robbins, whereas
Yeah.
y'all were used to recording somewhere else. Was this also another like, hey, this is the first time that I'm doing this like proper right, and so we're going with the big dog.
Yeah.
And what was that like? Like Jay Robbins, I mean, absolute like icon to me
Yeah.
personally. And like, was that intimidating at all, or were there any doubts and whatever immediately eased as soon as you started working?
Um, so yeah, I mean, first of all, like Jawbox is like one of my favorite bands of all time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and he's recorded like all of my favorite bands. I mean, like Texas is the Reason, Promise
Yeah,
Ring,
yeah. I was gonna say
um,
like just like
Jawbreaker, like
he has a tambourine credit on the Texas is the Reason album, and I'm just like, if I ever got to record with him, I'd have to just be like, so do you think like maybe a tambourine would fit in here somewhere? Like, I don't.
and we definitely dropped the ball not asking him to play tambourine on one of our songs.
Right, right.
I'm dreaming of a scarab wrapped around your finger. I'm dreaming of your hand in mine. I close my eyes and you're there. You're always there for me. I'm dreaming of fires wrapped around us, bringing us close together. I close my eyes and you're there. You're always there for me.
It's always kind of been like a goal of mine to record with him, just because yeah, again, I mean, he just recorded so many of my favorite bands. The first, like everything before that, we all like recorded ourselves and then sent it off to be mixed and mastered. So we wanted it to be like, with a full length, we wanted it to be like kind of like a step up with that. And we're like, well, our previous recordings sound pretty decent. So if we're gonna go like a step up, it's got to be like a significant step up.
Sure,
I'm not gonna pay like hundreds of dollars and it only be like marginally better than what I can do myself.
sure.
So sent it to Jay, and he was like, "Yeah, this is cool." And the other thing is, we knew one of us was gonna have to fly, because Colin lives in DC, I live in Atlanta. So the fact that Jay lives in Baltimore made it convenient, because then I could fly up to DC and then we could just drive to Baltimore, because that's only like 30, 45 minutes away.
Sure.
Uh, so we like booked 3 days with him, and we ended up actually only ended up using two. We recorded drums and one of the baritone guitars live, and then I went back and doubled the guitars and did bass the second day. Um, I don't know if I was like that intimidated. Maybe I should have been more. um, but I've been playing music now for like at this point 17 years. So like I've I played with a bunch of bands that I like. I just become more comfortable, I guess, with uh, myself, and been doing it long enough that that stuff doesn't really like phase me anymore. But one of the things I was definitely thinking of like the entire time was like, I hope he likes the music. Like, I hope he likes it. Like, because like he didn't really say anything. He didn't like, throughout the whole thing, he wasn't ever really like, oh, this sounds cool, or like I really like the song or anything.
Yeah.
Um, until he definitely really liked the guitar tones. Like he was like really into that. And he had a role in like helping out with the guitar tones as well. But he was really stoked about that. Um, and then pretty much when we wrapped it up, we did just the instruments with him. I did vocals at my house just because it was gonna take way too long.
Hmm.
Um, right at the end, we didn't even know if he was gonna be the one that was gonna mix it. Um, and he was like, "I like this record," or something like that. He's like, "I want to mix this," and Colin and I were like, "Okay, cool. Like, if you want to do it, and like you feel um like some level of ownership towards it, where like he wanted to do it, like we were stoked about that.
Yeah.
The fact that like that he wanted to do it. So that was cool there. But I just knew that like if I recorded, it would have been cool to record vocals with him, because I feel like that's probably the most like part of like producer that he would have been involved in.
Hmm.
Um, but I would have just thrown out my voice. Like if I tried to like just do it in like one day or something,
Sure.
it would have been
Sure.
impossible.
Yeah.
Uh,
Especially, because it sounds like this isn't something you get to practice a lot.
Yeah.
Like you're being mostly a remote band and stuff, which is something, as another question that I was going to ask is, it's like it's awesome that y'all got to do the guitars and the drums like live, like the basic
Mhm.
foundation for that anyway. Um, and I was wondering, so was that the first time that y'all played those songs together live, or had you
Uh,
played them here and there before?
we, I mean, we demoed out the entire like 10 songs before, but that was all remote.
Mm-hmm.
We had played a couple shows back in October of last year, and then we did one show in December. So a couple of the songs we like started, we had kind of played together, but most of the songs we didn't play at all together until the day before we recorded. We rented
Okay.
a practice space in DC for like 6 hours and just spent like all 6 hours just like
Cramming
practicing
for
the
the
song.
test. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that
We're like, we don't want to fuck up in front of Jay Robbins. Like,
only a little, maybe a little is okay, but yeah, we can't go in
yeah,
there looking like, hey, didn't y'all say that y'all been doing this since 2018? Because it doesn't show.
right.
No, you gotta be more primed than that. So what was that like in that practice space when you're playing these songs that and you've got all this anticipation of everything that's gonna happen the following day? Like, was that just like surreal? Did it feel great?
Yeah, I mean the songs when you have like real drums on them and like and everything and you're not playing them to a click, like they definitely like have a whole new life
Mm-hmm.
compared to the demo versions. But we were still using like a shitty drum set and like in the practice space, just um like they had like just like a solid state like combo amp in there that we were using. So it really wasn't until like the next day that we were practicing and we are hearing the songs. We're like, oh shit, this sounds good. Like,
Oh,
uh,
because you were using the Magpies stuff, like
yeah,
the house gear.
yeah,
Oh shit, that would blow my fucking mind because like even like my best stuff in my house, there's no way it's anywhere near as good as that. So like that would have just been like I guess like the closest that I've come, I think, is when we played Miss the Stars in I think it was 2018. When we played Miss
Mhm.
the Stars, they had like a really great Marshall head, which like, I mean, I have a good Marshall head, but it hasn't worked since like 2009 or something.
Yeah,
um, but they had like a really good Marshall head, and they had like a really nice drum kit like for the back line,
yeah,
and we played, and I was like, holy shit, we're like maybe like we're kind of a good band. Like we're okay, um, like we sound good. um,
yeah,
so yeah, that had to be awesome. And just like, I don't know, it's kind of like you probably didn't have time to think about that at the time because you're just like, okay, I'm here to work essentially,
right,
but then later you're
yeah,
like, how many bands that I admire like recorded on this same stuff and like
right,
use that same guitar pedal or what, like whatever stuff that you might have been sort of like, oh, we could also put this in there, or whatever. But yeah, that's awesome. um well, like I said, the album is great, and that's, that'll be coming in just a couple days after this airs. um but yeah, like, I know that y'all are touring on this album, um but I didn't specifically see like the dates and stuff. So like, what cities are y'all hitting up for that?
yeah. On August 9th, we're doing the release show in Atlanta.
Mm.
Um, and then we're going and playing Columbus, Ohio, Pittsburgh, um, Philly, New York City, Rhode Island, and then wrap up in DC. and then I'll drive back.
Okay. So how is like so y'all are playing the release show and then you're booking it all the way up to
Yeah,
and then you're sort of making the rounds and then you're dropping the drummer off and then you're driving home
yeah,
by yourself. Yeah,
yeah,
that's well, I hope you have some good podcasts or something. I can recommend
yeah.
one for you if you like, uh, but for the drive home because yeah, at that like the tour is over and then you're by yourself on the drive home. It's like, oh no,
Yeah.
but yeah, I didn't ask and I probably should have just like noticed this when I was like looking earlier. But in my defense, I was listening to the album which you sent me, just like the folder of. So when it came to like the stuff I was listening to on Bandcamp, I didn't listen to the album on Bandcamp. But
Sure.
what formats it being released on?
Yeah, we're gonna do vinyl through No Funeral.
Uh huh.
Um, Thinking they're gonna do like a run of 200. I'm hoping we get those soon, hopefully in time for the tour. Um,
It's
though
cutting it kind of close, huh?
it is kind of, yeah, it is cutting it close at this point. It's like a month away. Um, and then we're going to do tapes through Self First Records.
Okay. So is it like a you'll definitely have the tapes thing, if not both?
Yeah, if we don't have the tapes, I'll be mad.
Uh, yeah.
um,
If you don't have the tapes, it's kind of well. I guess we're hitting up the Walmart for some CDRs, or something. We got to have something, right? But yeah, it's a great album. I hope that y'all get
Thank you.
everything you need for your tour and people were able to pick that up and stuff. Um, is there is there anything else that we should chat about before we sort of start wrapping it up? Or I wasn't sure. I feel like we got through sort of like the history of the band and stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Um, I think we kind of covered um, a good bit of stuff. Do you have any other questions?
not necessarily. I just like to ask that at the end in case I'm forgetting. Sometimes somebody just pulls out like, well, I also got this whole other band that I didn't know about, or something
Oh,
like that, and then I'm like a little egg on the face. But that's all good in those instances too. Um, but
I mean,
yeah,
I can mention uh, s- other stuff that I'm working on.
for sure. You're doing
Um,
like some solo stuff or just like
so the drummer of Under Sky So Blue, Oliver, I also played with him in Fishmonger. Um, we did a studio project back in 2021 called The Same Deep Water as You. It's like kind of emo violence, a little bit of black metal
mm-hmm.
um, kind of thing. Um, so we're working on writing some songs for that. And Solvalu was on Open Mind Saturated Brain, and they already spilled the beans that we were going to do a split together. So now they have to actually live up to it.
Oh, okay. And that's Will's
um,
new band with
yeah,
Cleo
right
from
nine.
Right Nines in that. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So and that release that they put out earlier this year was really good. I was really into it.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, hopefully we can finish up writing those songs and record those in the fall. And I don't know, maybe the split will be out in the winter or something. I'll
Oh,
break my
break tradition.
I'll break yeah, I'll break my
Yeah.
tradition.
Yeah. See, here's the thing. The thing about that is that's funny is because it's like you mentioned, like it's like I'll be doing all this stuff and then everything will just come out in the same couple of weeks or whatever. And that's like one of those things too. It's like I'll have all this stuff going on and it'll be in such different like stages of development or whatever that I'm like there is no way this like some of this stuff is way ahead of some of the other stuff as far as
Right.
production timelines. You're like this is going to be nice. I'm going to have something to show people just about every month for however long and it never works that way. It's always like okay, here's 5 things that it looks like I just did in June, and it's like,
Right.
um, it's really, it's just like that. It's like feast or famine, but just like with the way you play your little musical chairs, it's just like I've got something right now where it's just like it's like, as far as I know, it's like only the drums have been recorded. I have another thing that just needs the vocals on it. I have another thing that just needs the vocals on it. I have another thing after that just needs the vocals. Like, I have something that just needs the bass and vocals. Like, I have all this stuff that's in all these different, and it's like,
Stage.
watch,
Yeah.
watch. It doesn't matter. The thing that's just drums right now, somehow, miraculously, it'll come out at the same time as this 4-song EP that only needed vocals, or whatever. Like, it's just like
Right.
stuff happens, and that's just the way it works. But
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see. Maybe a winter release for Dim. We'll see. And that was my conversation with Brian Perez-Canto. Thank you so much, Brian, for taking the time to chat with me. In 213 episodes, I've never done something like cut the phantom power to my mic, but I think we made it work. Anyway, I hope y'all enjoyed the episode wherever you're listening. Until next time, take care and do good things.